Hello everybody, and thanks for coming back to the channel. In this video I'm going to cover some questions that come up quite a bit, and it's not just about RTF or bind and fly products. We're also going to have a few things for the builders out there as well. Right now a lot of us are heading into winter, so whoops, these style of machines are a very hot item, and I'm only going to cover this a little bit, but yes, I have a clear canopy and I have a mount. Robert Thompson, thank you very much. He worked very hard on this. I think this was revision 13 for the EOS 2 camera. I do understand that the EOS 1, some of those also have the screws. That's very critical to making this work. Of course, you modify your canopy to make this camera adjustable. So I'll cover this in more detail in a future video. That aside, we're kind of talking about whoops, because we're going to see a few more whoops coming to market very, very soon. Via email, I spoke to Jason from Happy Model. He's going to be sending me the new Mobulus 7, and that's a 2S whoop. So we'll see what that's like when it gets here, whenever it does get here. But these are kind of the things that we've seen that are real hot right now. So some are saying that this frame isn't quite as durable as this frame, and that's just purely from what I've read. Of course, mine are fully intact here, so you kind of have your choice of which one you can get. You can also get a blue frame, which I did order but I don't have yet. So if you bought one of the country versions and you wanted to swap the components out, you could get that blue frame or a clear frame for a few dollars. Then you can change the look a little bit. But these two fly great, and I think these are much more suitable for indoor than the 2S, than the Beta FPV 75X that we see here in the center. I think for 2S, you're going to have a good-sized house, especially with the camera angle that thing comes with. Of course, you can get this one that Robert made for us. And by the way, if you go on to Thingiverse and you download something, you know how it has that little splash screen or pop-up that comes up and says tip the designer? I think that's something that we should do, because that's one of the ways we get people motivated to design more things for the community. I know I have been guilty in the past of not tipping them, and I kind of, after going through this with Robert, I kind of thought, man, there's a lot of work in making this stuff work. And I'm not a designer by any stretch, so if you design your own prints, more power to you, but I'm not. I'm usually using somebody else's and I'm hacking it up for my own purposes. But I've started to tip those designers because I see a great deal of value in getting someone else to spend that time and that work and kind of showing my appreciation for what they've done. So I would encourage you, if you've got 50 cents, a dollar, whatever the have you, tip them a little bit and keep them motivated. That's one way we can keep them motivated. Also, it does that little counter on Thingiverse that tells them how many people have downloaded it and whatnot. So if you're wanting to fly indoor, I would suggest one of these. If you want to fly indoor and outdoor, I would suggest this with, a different camera angle. They do, on the Beta FPV website, offer a 25-degree mount that you can print out yourself. That's still a little bit much in my opinion. I think, 15 degrees is probably 10, in some cases even 10 degrees. I mean, this is camera angle on the UR65 here. That's pretty extreme, and so I was flying pretty fast in that video, and you can see this one is pretty much to match. And some of you might be asking about the Snapper series. Yes, I've flown the Snapper series. I'm not a fan of them. Some people like them very strongly because they have carbon fiber as their base. I am not a fan because they bend up on those aluminum hoops, and then you've got to adjust them. I actually transferred mine over to a plastic frame. I think it flies just fine. I haven't really tuned it up quite like I would like to. I just fly it around and have a little fun with it every now and again. I don't know if I'll bring that to the channel or not, but I do get some questions from time to time about the Snappers. I'm just not a fan of those. They have essentially the same components inside that these two do. They're just bigger. I'm also not a fan of carrying a bigger battery, because the way I fly, I tend to feel that battery weight pulling me around corners, and I tend to crash more, and I don't have nearly as much fun when I'm spending all my time crashing. So when it comes to these whoops, I would say get one of these if you're just going to fly indoors, and if you want to do more than indoor flying, if you want to do some outdoor flying, or you just want to go all out fast. If you have a local flying group, this might be a good option, but we're going to see several more of these coming to the market. There's been pictures circulating. I think there's a 100mm version coming from King Kong. That's a little bit big, but you never know. It could be very, very good. And then we've got the Mobulus 7 from Happy Model coming out as well. And I suspect other manufacturers are going to be jumping into this category as well. Personally, for me, I would like to see the camera down lower so that we can get a little bit of that hoop in view, so it gives us a little bit of that traditional feel. With the Beta 75X, we just don't get that unless you go clear down like that, and then you just get a touch of the front hoops just because that camera is so elevated. Something like this is much easier to get your hoop feel in. Okay, so next up are these two. This is the SkyStar's X120, and this is the Emax BabyHawk R Pro. I think if you're looking at a 2.5 inch, the Phoenix is also a good one, but that's not one I have flown. But I think these two are kind of the ones that you're looking at as far as feature set in the case of the Pro, and all-out performance in the case of the X120. So the X120, oftentimes you'll end up with a kit version. If you're not interested in building, choose the plug-and-play version. They're also looking to replace this, I think. I don't have any inside knowledge of that. It just seems very, very weird that we now see on the GearBest website, they've got the Micro Eagle 120, which has the exact same frames. It seems to have the same motors, running the same props, and they've switched out the camera and the flight stack. So that might interest you a little bit, but the price is more expensive. I think the price is like $35 more expensive now. They have a 32-bit ESC. They have power switchable VTX. They have some things that this one doesn't have in it. I think this one does have a power switchable VTX in it, but it doesn't have smart audio. So that's something to consider, but the performance on this thing for a micro, for a 2.5 inch, is bananas. I've been trying to replicate this with other motors and other builds, and I have yet to do it. So I've been kind of disappointed in my own efforts, but it's been a happy exploration. As far as feature set goes, this is very, very feature rich. It comes in around $170. You can get it all over the place. You probably saw my review on it. Hopefully you did. It flies really well. I had a good time. I think the canopy design is real smart. They also made some changes into their flight stack as far as how it's mounted, so we shouldn't have ESC shorting problems. I think most likely, unless you've already got your eye on something else, these are the two micros to have right now. Okay, 3-inchers are pretty simple. When you're looking at traditional 1400 series motors, I think the Helifar X140 is still the one to have, unless you don't like it because of the tall stack or something of that nature. This thing is a beast. When you change out the stock props to these gym fan props, it really comes to life. And again, this is another one with lots of float, lots of punch. It's a good time to fly. I think it's really hard to beat, and I can't remember what it comes in at, but it's right around that $150 marker. I think it was maybe a 140. It might have been 160, right around 150. I'll put links to everything down below if you want to check the current pricing. There might be sales and stuff going on. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff. This is one I still fly from time to time when I'm looking to get a 3-incher that flies like a monster outside. And if I'm building a 3-incher, I'm going to go with the Hypetrain motors. I really enjoyed these. You can see from my last video, I snapped this arm. But these motors, I think, are nice and light, so in tight spaces, they don't really drag you around your track or course or into objects if you're more freestyle and flippy-floppy. Reducing that weight does help you keep under control a little bit better, but this has also got monster punch. It's also good thrust and efficiency. I was really surprised at the efficiency. I flew this thing around a little 450 milliamp 4S battery, and I got 3 minutes of flight, which is... It's rare. It's just rare, and that's why I choose these motors. Now, I did use the Rotor X props. Other people suggesting I go with a lighter prop, but anyways, in my experience with this prop, this is a good combination. There may be a better combination out there, but if you're a builder and you're looking at a 3-inch, whether it be with the Brat frame or not, I would give these motors a whirl. They're not cheap. I think they come around $16 or $17 a spot, but I'm going to keep these motors on a working quad just because I enjoyed the flight. Again, it's light, so that helps to keep your weight down, and therefore you're a little bit more agile. You can actually feel that when you're trying to fly fast and near objects. That weight is really important. And if you're going to build a 2.5-incher, I would go with these motors. They're really good overall performance. These are the T-Motor Racer Star combo motors. They're 1106 6000 kV motors. They have good performance, not bonkers performance like the SkyStar's motors, but this is 3S now. But the efficiency was also very, very good. So it's a really good balance. The best balance I've found in all the micro motors that I've flown so far are these motors right here. I know that seems weird. We got this Racer Star brand, but they teamed up with T-Motor. T-Motor's a quality motor manufacturer, and they came up with something that's pretty dang good. So I would say if you're going to build a 2.5, I would go with this. It's also much easier to tune these because they're not super notchy motors like the Sunny Skies and some of the others. I think Brother Hobby also makes some really notchy motors. So these are relatively smooth, but they perform very, very well. It's not middle of the road. I would say it's an upper echelon, but then it has efficiency that's just off the charts as far as 1100 series motors. So again, if I'm building a 2.5-inch prop machine, I'm going to go with these motors. And you see I took it off my test and I put it on this. While we're here, another thing people might be asking about building, I use the SpeedX IS100 flight stack. It's very cheap, and that's why. It comes in around $53 for your entire flight stack. It's got a 20 amp ESC, it's got an F4 flight controller, it's got a VTX, which I'm not a huge fan of the VTX. I don't think it's nearly as good as the other components, but it does work reliably. That's the one thing about this stack. It does have pins between the boards, but I've done 6 like this, and they've been my test bed through lots of flights, lots of crashes, and I have yet to break one. So if you're looking to build with a flight stack, that's a flight stack that I can recommend as well. If I'm building a 3-inch with 1100 series motors, I'm going to use these 1108 Tachyon motors. They're 6,000 kV, so we're running 3S on these. I thought the efficiency was reasonable for the performance. So it's not going to give you a 3-minute flight, but you're going to get over 2 minutes. So you're not going to end up with like a 1:30 flight. I was pretty happy with how this machine flew overall, and I've got another set of 1108 6,000 kV motors yet to put on here in my little roll of stuff. Something when I find a frame that really catches my eye. So if I'm going to build with a 3-inch prop, I would also use these gem fan props. I like these because they're light. They have relatively good pitch as far as 35 degrees of pitch. I just liked how they flew quite a bit from my flight style. So if you're asking me about a build like this, I would suggest these motors and these props. We'll talk about my charger in a minute. So I get a lot of questions about the x-lite. Whenever I am flying FrSky, I use the x-lite. That's just the way it is now. I don't use my Taranis X9D Plus. It just sits on the shelf. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have a couple machines that's bound to it still, and if I were to want to fly those particular machines, because I haven't bothered to rebind them to the X-Lite, I might, in a pinch, in a quick, pick up that X9D just to go fly those particular machines if I want to. And you might be wondering why I have the jumper, the T8 SG out here. These are good starters. These jumper series, I also have the T12 right here. We'll cover that a little bit in a coming video. This is the Hall sensor gimbals. But, you know, this is like a, what, 120, 130 bucks from most vendors. I'm a pincher. It just works for me. I'm flying it consistently, daily. I fly it with indoor quads. I fly it with outdoor quads. I just use it whenever I'm doing FrSky. I also fly DSM-X from time to time. It depends on what I'm flying because I have some of those receivers. And DSS and Spectrum is what I started out on. So that's why I run both. And as someone who has a lot of products coming through, it just makes things easier if a vendor says, well, I don't have FrSky, how about DSM-X? And I'll go, that's fine. I'll fly it with something else that I have around. So it gives me a little bit of flexibility there. But I do like this radio the most of all the radios that I have right now. But these are good starters. Now, the reason why I have 2 out here is hopefully you can see that the size, and this isn't a review, but the size and shape of these 2 is a little bit different. Now this has the Hall M9 M sensor fancy gimbals, and they are smooth. So I think there's something to be had there. This one actually has the, I don't know if I can show it, I got my camera too close, has the module in the back so you can bind to all sorts of different stuff. It is running the OpenTX software on it versus this one is running Deviation. Now I do use this one, and there's one reason, and that is because when you're flying, I use this as my arm switch on traditional box style radios. On the X-Lite, I use this little guy down here. I put my finger up here, arm, disarm. So arm, disarm. It makes it really easy for me because I like to disarm quickly. That way, if I might find my neighbor's pool, there's a fighting chance I can disarm before I get into it. But again, with these traditional box styles, I use this as my arming switch. And the problem is with most of the others, I pinch again, is that in this particular case, I can pinch and I can go full throttle and I don't touch that switch. But since they changed the shape a little bit, this switch is closer to our stick. So if I go full stick, I end up hitting that switch. So I would have to change my position. And I could adjust to it just like I did to the X-Lite. I've just chosen to be stubborn in this particular case that if I'm going to be flying Spectrum, that I'm just going to go with I'm going to use the traditional one. It still works fine for me. I don't have any problems with it. But these are good budget radios. If you're just getting started, I would choose one of these to save a few dollars. I say that a little bit cautiously because the radio is something you use with each and every quad. So you want to make sure you're happy with your purchase when it comes to your radio and your goggles. Those are the things you're going to use over and over and over. But it can save you a few dollars. So if you're tight on money, then you can get something like this. and you can maybe spend a few extra dollars on your goggles. Another important little piece to our FPV journey if you're just starting out is goggles. Now these are the Eachine EV900Ds or Pros. I can't remember which. This one has the true diversity, and a lot of people still use these as your box goggles. I started out in box goggles. I'm sorry I'm not very zoomed out here so you can see everything. Again, not a review. The nice thing about these goggles is they're very comfortable. They have a head strap. It works. The Eachine DVR is generally considered a good DVR, better than we find in some other goggles, and because this thing can separate, you can use this on a tripod. I won't pull it apart because again I'm not very zoomed out here, but these are good budget goggles. You can have these for probably somewhere between $60 and $90. It depends upon what's going on with the pricing at the time, and then you can also run 2 receivers. You've got your DVR in there. Channel searching seems to work fine. Good budget set of goggles. And in another case, if you have glasses and you need to wear glasses, really the best one I can think of in the moment is going to be the FXT Viper goggles. They're about 150 bucks. You can get them from Amazon. You can get them all over the place as well. A good goggle that fits glasses so you can enjoy FPV with your glasses if you should need them. And if you're not needing glasses or you have a bigger budget, I would just go with the Fat Shark HDOs. Wildly, the reports are just overwhelmingly good with those. I don't have those, but they're the latest, greatest in Fat Shark, and Fat Shark has been making small increments increasing their goggles and the features and the performance. My last bit you're just looking at a picture of because it has been busy charging batteries, and that is my charger. It is a Q200. It charges 4 batteries at a time. I've been using it for over a year now, and it works great. I don't have any complaints about it. It has worked every time I've asked it to. It does what I need it to. Of course, I'm a micro guy, so I'm not charging giant batteries. If there's a power issue with it, I haven't experienced it yet, probably because I'm not charging 1500 6S batteries 4 at a time, or I'm not connecting parallel boards and really overloading the thing. It just works well. It's 180, 190 bucks. And it's really hard to beat to be able to charge 4 batteries at the same time at that price point and do it reliably. Okay, so those are the things I think you should buy if you're looking to buy. If you're looking to build, there's a few things in there for that. Of course, there's a few things I didn't cover if you're looking to get goggles, but these are questions I get all the time, and it's awful hard to type all this in, so I've decided to make this short video, and I can point you in this direction so I can be a little bit easier for me to get information to you should you ask a question where this video would be an appropriate answer. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.